Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Toy Lips. With Hasbro taking another shot at some astonishing X-Men figures in their 6-inch line, I wanted to take a look back at this Beast figure from the 3 3/4 inch line that never got a figure in 6-inch scale, and this is a fine example of not only a character that could use an update, but also a fine example of the quality they are capable of. Let's go a little over 10 years back to Hasbro taking over the Marvel Legends line from Toy Biz, right? Toy Biz had been running it for years and had done all the major characters. Hasbro sort of threw its 2 cents in and then shut the line down. I think the gig was just that they felt like they had put out all the relevant characters and it had sort of run its course, even though they could just keep making new characters on top of it. They decided to give it sort of a rest. And rising costs of plastic, I think they were citing, and having to put in Build-A-Figure pieces, blah, blah, blah. They launched the Marvel Universe line at a 3 3/4 scale. This ran for several years, and it originally had a price point of $6.50 a figure. I'm not making that up. $6.49. They dropped these in like 08, 09. Release windows is what they are. As Randy Falk from NECA would tell you, that there's just no way to release a product day and date. Apparently, he's never heard of iPhones or movies. If you can't do it, just say you can't do it. It's not a big deal. They're just toys. Anyway, they ran this line for several years, cranked out all the relevant characters, hundreds of them. You know how they do. Just, I think, as an effort to get in on this sort of Star Wars-like style vintage scale, is Hasbro's bread and butter. G.I. Joe, Star Wars, why not Marvel? Now, as time would go, we did see sort of, it's like what's happening today, but just on an accelerated timeline. I think, personally, they were using it to work out a lot of kinks, to experiment with this or that. I mean, there were like 5 price increases in as many years. By the end, they were charging $15, and they had no kidding, been stripping out the articulation. And then they just killed it off. They had sort of eased us back into the Marvel Legends, the 6-inch figures proper, in 2012. That's why it's called The Return, because it was gone. Some people are a little confused about that. I mean, if you weren't following the toy game that closely, I get it. But I mean, Shartimus Prime seemed confused. He was doing a retrospective of the releases, and he gets to that era, and he's like, I don't know what happened. Maybe they just kind of slowed the line down. No, bro, they shut the line down while they released these for several years. That's why 2012, the tag is The Return of Marvel Legends. Okay, I know they released like two packs, store exclusive 2-packs. There were repainted re-releases in like the last calendar year before the return. So there were Marvel Legends that came out, but the line proper was on pause, we'll say. But I personally love the smaller scale. I think it lends itself better to vehicles and playsets and things. For sure, the 6-inch is a bigger canvas, and there's just so much in that way. Everything is sort of tailored to this toy collecting community. But there are some goddamn gems. There are some goddamn gems here. And I really, really like this Beast figure. This is from the Astonishing X-Men. No, let's back up a little further. Beast mutated again to more of a feline-like look in Grant Morrison's new X-Men. That's just, they're redesigning it. Him and Frank Quitely, he's like, boom, this is how Beast is going to look. Cat-like. Now, his costume began to slowly evolve over the course of Joss Whedon's Astonishing X-Men run. But in the 3rd year of that, after he left and Warren Ellis took over, with designs by Simone Bianchi, this became the de facto Beast costume for Astonishing X-Men circa issue 26. But this is like one of the rare figures in any scale that really nails that. It's not just Astonishing. This is very specific. This is the Bianchi redesign, and you get some of that. They do some of that nice extra detail you can see in the gauntlets, all of this line work. Of course, every bit of this is uniquely sculpted. They only released it the one time. They could have just done like a new upper torso or something and had the Astonishing costume before that with the exposed chest. They would later release a couple of classic renditions of Beast, the blue and a gray recolor. But at that point, they had completely stripped all the articulation, single joints, and like nothing at the torso. I bought them, but I didn't even open them. I was done at that point. Obviously, they were too, but not with taking our money. They wanted $15 at that point. Anyway, the look of this figure, it's killer. It really is. All uniquely sculpted parts with fur sculpted into the thing. It's not just colored blue, say. I mean, look at the shag on these legs down here, Just great, great sculpted detail. The piping on the costumes is sculpted. And the facial likeness, I mean, there's extra colors of paint. He's got eyeshadow on and everything. They were not afraid to throw in a paint wash back in this day. Saying that, though, I don't see anything here. But it does look like they've hit the high points on the piping with a slightly darker yellow. That's really freaking cool. Checking out that articulation, this is about as good as it gets at this line. And it is really solid by any standard. You know, often there would be a couple points at the waist. We're down to just one here. But you can get some really solid poses here. These things, they move all up and all around, all silly with it, you know. Legs coming all out. That head is on a ball joint with a hinge, and you can actually get that to sort of lock back on those different positions there, up and down, and he's got good tilt and rotation on that thing. Shoulders socketed in here, they will come all the way up, and they will rotate freely. Bicep cut there. Single jointed elbow, comes up to a 90. Hinged wrist that'll fold in and back. That single piece of torso articulation, it's a diaphragm cut though, and it's got some decent range. You can crouch forward, crunch back, side to side, rotates all the way around. The legs, it's just kind of binding here because it's like thick pieces. Could have used like drop down or just some more of the body shaved away. But otherwise they'll come out to the sides a little bit, forward and back. And it's got upper thigh cut here. These pop right off of there. See, it's just a little ball peg. You just pop that onto. Double jointed knee, great big pieces. They'll come back this far. Most unique though, he's got a ball down here at the ankle that's pegged into this upper piece, so it'll go forward and back. You get good rocker on that thing, and he gets toe articulation. This is what I mean about them trying stuff, experimenting with stuff. You act like all this stuff is brand new in Marvel Legends. They were over here messing with it 10 years ago. And then they stripped it back and started incremental upgrades. You know what I mean? Rather than, they could just sit and just make you the nicest figure. But then what? They need to slowly iterate as it goes so they have an excuse to hit you up for more money all the time. It is a business, right? So the Beast figure actually came with no accessories. I know I complain about that a lot, but that's been a thing for a long time, and there was a lot of unique new sculpting, plus swappable hands and heads. They definitely were the exception back in this day and not the norm. So it is what it is. I'm always looking for something. The Beast character, maybe Cerebra, maybe just a friggin' can of soda. What did he, he said he used to play the guitar, right? After he mutated again, he lost a finger. He's like, I used to play the guitar. It's always fun to see something. See, my diorama world here is made up of all kinds of little effects and accessories that came with different figures and sets, but chiefly NECA stuff, because they're really good about that. Otherwise, from Marvel, what I can throw in the occasional cosmic cube, and this is all NECA stuff. I was going to hold up a little soda can, but there it went. How about a little turtle communicator, the compact one? Come on. Oh, here we go. It's a little tempad from Loki. That's just fine. So just to show off real quick, this is early days. This is the beginning of the line. Here's an Iron Man figure. And he does have some really nice functionality here. They've all got a diaphragm cut, if not all a waist cut. There were no thigh cuts in the beginning, but you do get double jointed knees, single jointed elbow, and no hinge on the wrists. They would just peg in, as well as the head just being up on a ball. Nothing special there. But this is series 1, $6.49. Not too shabby. Okay, a couple years into it, I know there were only a few years that this went on total. It seems like a lot though. You know, when I take myself back there, I lived this. These were good times. This was their sort of pinnacle, one of their pinnacle frames though. We got a re-released Daredevil. Seem familiar? Yeah, he's got all of the new hotness, but he's got a nice paint wash. Look at the paint on these things, man. Versus our new Daredevil, that's just the one flat tone. Fine, you don't need to mimic lighting. There's always that endless argument that could be made. But this is painted a lot nicer. And look, it's got a head up on a thing, and it's got the shoulders, and it's got the diaphragm cut and a waist twist, and he's got double jointed knees here, calf cut, ankle rocker, little tiny ankle rocker. We don't have double jointed elbows or wrist hinges. Some figures didn't have wrist hinges, but some did. Same with double joints. I mean, I've got teeny tiny female figures with double jointed arms. So, when they say that there's a threshold, a size threshold, they're not lying, but they're not necessarily saying, hey, this here is the threshold. They're just like, we don't want to do it. So by the end, they were pushing him like this. I think he came out when they were $12.50, maybe even $15. But, same single jointed elbow. But we've lost the upper thigh cut. We've lost the boot cut. Still got ankle rocker. But there is absolutely no torso articulation. There's no waist cut, no anything. That's why it's scaring me when I see the Luke Cage solicit. When we have the new Dr. Octopus animated series, it's the same thing. They're robbing us of torso articulation. I think those have it like ball socketed in down here. But come on. Okay, to check out the height and where he fits in with some other characters, here is a tiny tape for our tiny friend. And he is about 4.5 inches. In a line that's rated 3 3/4 scale, but like the Legend stuff, people would claim they run large. Closer to say 4-inch. If you guys don't know, the original action figure scale was the president of then Kenner Toys when they were making the Star Wars figures back in the 70s. They're like, how big should we make these? And dude was like, this big. And I kid you not, the story is they just pulled a tape and they just measured the finger gap, and that's why figures are 3 3/4 of an inch. Doesn't necessarily fit in with all the scales that we have. 1/18 people will say, yes, that's where you would fit it. That would be 4 inches though. And that stuff like that is more pleasing to me, but there's just some fun trivia. The reality lies somewhere in the middle for how big these are or should be. Fitting him in with some other Astonishing era figures, here we have Colossus. This was an earlier release in the line. And it's the Astonishing Colossus because these droop over the shoulder. Look at the paint colors in there. There's washes, there's darker colors. $6.50. This one was $6.50. They're just a little more finicky. How it do. You guys have experience with like vintage collection stuff maybe. Or even these. It's not like I'm the only person in the world that has these, but I am the one sharing. So we also have a Cyclops. This is from the X-Men Origins Wolverine line comic book figures, though, circa 2009 or 9. So this was a Cyclops that only appeared on this body. It was some kind of special mold just for that. Afterwards, all Cyclops figures would be released on one style of body, and not terribly desirable. Think Bucky Cap. Does that sound familiar? This isn't the worst figure, actually. While we are here, he came with an optic blast accessory that plugs right into the front there. Look at that. Huh? And this was over 10 years ago from the same company. Come on, guys. So they would re-release, towards the end of the line, they would re-release an updated version of that costume. Actually, it was the one that fits with the Beast, the Bianchi stuff, with the extra markings, the extra line work over the one shoulder, and the lack of belt being the predominant, the identifying characteristics. I guess sort of ankle and wrist cuffs as well. That would also be indicative of that style. As in people's minds, they can be more interchangeable. I know, not me. I know exactly what these are, where they came from, where your issue cutoffs are going to fall. Again, after John Cassidy's designs in the original Joss Whedon Astonishing X-Men, 24 issues and a giant size. Then someone else took over, Warren Ellis, Simone Bianchi, with issue 25. I've assembled some of those books right here. This is the San Diego Comic-Con sketch variant. Anyway, here's the cover for issue 26. This one actually spotlights our Beast friend. Look at that. He apparently didn't get the memo about the more feline transition. He's just drawing Beast. He's like, I know what Beast looks like, bro. Come on. Well, maybe you missed a few years, but this is just stellar. The artwork is just phenomenal. And another one I brought out to spotlight is just the really, really complicated design work. He's really overcomplicating these. This is what I mean. Phil Jimenez picks this up. He's like, the hell am I supposed to do with this? I'm not drawing this every panel. I did get this in 6-inch scale. They put this out, 2014? With a small Wolverine line that featured Wolverine, Cyclops, that Sabretooth in the costume nobody asked for. And apparently there was a White Queen. I never saw that. I never saw that White Queen. But you did get a few characters like that. This is a gigantic Wolverine before they had sorted that. But these aren't too bad. Awful leathery buggy cap Cyclops. See how much bigger these fellas are. He's got a big one, you know that. What else? We're still working here. Okay, so we have Kitty Pryde, and they were close. They got the hair. You can see where the inspiration comes from. This yellow should cap over the shoulders, man. Come on, open up the comic. Come on. Don't forget little friend Lockheed. Very similar to the ones we get today, except this is covered in a black paint wash. And they've dotted the eyeballs. The new ones were impressed. Oh, hey, they've dotted the eyeballs. You know. But there's no paint wash. Can we stack all of these over here? Is this going to work out? Oh. So as an interesting aside, the first couple of years, these figures were coming with stands. They each came with little action figure stands, little rectangular G.I. Joe style stands. Pretty sweet. Pretty sweet. You might need them. Especially for the last member of our team that we got. I was going to say, they apparently they released a White Queen. I never saw that one either. So here is the Wolverine. They tried so hard. They came out of the gate with this awful, awful Wolverine body that was huge. It had articulation and stuff, but it was huge and crazy. So they toned it down, and they released this one and the X-Force one. And it looks okay from certain angles. He's got these nice big arms, you know. And he's a shorter figure. And you get all this extra paint detail in there, too. All the claws are stuck together, but boy, they're straight, right? Single jointed elbow. And they don't create very nice, convincing poses for him. This one was always a struggle to pose convincingly. The legs have a ball jointed thing going on, just like why? But you get double jointed knees, and no, and there's not even ankle rocker. It's like it was made out of old pieces. Tony Stark built this in a cave out of scraps. I actually painted my own, a different version for the later gen here with the soft shoulders. Here he is next to a 6-inch, next to the 6-inch Beast. I know they did that one from the before times. That's the half shirt, the earlier Astonishing stuff. And was that Hasbro? I'd look that up. I think that was Hasbro. I want them to do a modern, updated 6-inch Beast with, you know, maybe some of these parts. If they could reuse some of that, I get it. But they've really run this one into the ground as far as reusing this body, right? We got 2 blues and a couple of grays, and where's Red Beast at? What about Green Beast? Come on, don't. What about one that's red and green together to represent that one panel in that one issue? Is that worth your $30? Is that worth your $33? Your $60? I think this is a great figure. Fits right in with the Marvel Universe scale. I have damn near every one of these figures. I've been thinking for a long time, too. It's like I need to just go back and finish those last couple of waves where I was falling off. I was grossed out by most of their offerings. But I know a lot of people are starting to feel that way with their stuff today, and I just kind of wanted to point that out, that, you know, they've been up to these shenanigans for a long time, but it doesn't mean they're not capable of making really solid figures, and have been, again, for a long time. You know, that's on the plans. Release Spider-Man. Release a Spider-Man with a nicer deco on a nicer body frame. Release Spider-Man with the nicer deco on the nicer body frame, but with toe articulation. You know? I know they're all over the board, and they plan for what molds to use and how much reuse is appropriate for each juncture. But when it is time for something new, when you're budgeting for something big and new, maybe think about this Astonishing Era Beast and a few more figures from that from that era. We've never gotten a Hisako figure, a big beefy armor character, like a translucent outer piece with a figure inside of there. How do we even work that? Hasbro's made some like goo characters, think Fortnite, and we got the slime cube. Something like that, right? I'm still waiting on a slightly iterated Astonishing Wolverine. Regular claws and swapping those black shoulder pads for blue, and that's another $25 they'll come around asking. Maybe they'll put that little comm badge, a little X on his chest. Hey, we all gotta get by somehow. So on that note, leave a like on this video so I don't starve. Share it with your friends. You probably don't know any toy collectors, right? But make sure to subscribe to this channel. Toy Lips. I've got lots more Marvel Universe figures that I want to spotlight. Things I want to point out. Parallels between what they're doing today and what they were doing 10 years ago. Thinking that we can't remember back that far. Who are we, goldfish?